Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and today we're back to take another look at Dauntless. About 7 months ago, their major update Echoes of the Future launched and introduced the Chronivore in that awesome new hunting grounds they had. At that time, we took a deeper look into Dauntless. I maxed out a weapon, tried all the aspects of the game to make a proper, genuine review. Was Dauntless worth playing? Should you try it as a Monster Hunter fan? Personally, I felt that Dauntless, while very comparable to Monster Hunter, was starting to go down a better and more unique route with its builds and concepts. And while they weren't all perfect changes, like when they took away solo hunting, that was a wild choice, they have been taking feedback seriously, it would seem. They've walked back changes that were bad and the community didn't like, such as solo hunting. And it would seem they continue to introduce new concepts that challenge what Dauntless is, which I think is a good thing for the game long term. Take the weapons. Most are in a great state or were in a great state 7 months ago, but there were a few that needed some updates still. And I wasn't the only person, because apparently they'd already planned to rework certain weapons that I had issues with. I was even streaming the game during this period when I was working on that review, and a dev literally jumped in my chat when there was only like 50 people and asked for some feedback since he saw I was a new player from the title. So I would say the attitude of the dev team is a really good one. Either way, I definitely recommend the video I made if you want to learn more about Dauntless and see if it's worth your time. But today we're 7 months on from that patch. What has happened since then? Have they actually fulfilled what they said they were working on at the time? I would say they've been trying to do that with 4 new Behemoths, an entirely new hunting ground is in the game. There's the new Heroic Escalations, which are like the weekly version of an escalation, adding more challenge and actually altering the Behemoths so they have new attacks and combos. There was that major change to the cells, the builds, where they introduced something called Omni Cells, changing how you make your build. Both the repeaters and the chain blades have had a rework of sorts, and I felt the repeaters really needed one. So yeah, lots of new stuff. The question is it good? Let's find out. Let's start with the new Behemoths. As I was saying, there's been 4 added since the Echoes of Future update, and that is true. There's 2 entirely new Behemoths, the Savit and the Phalanx. Sorry if I mispronounced those. And then the 2 new variants or subspecies, the Thunderdeep Drask and the Bloodshot Shroud, which changes those Behemoths in a few ways. Visually, sure, but they have entirely new mechanics that should make them more threatening. First then, the Savit. This is the newest Behemoth added to the game, and it's much like a giant praying mantis that moves pretty damn quick. I really like the design. It's like this super thin, tall monster, but then weighed down by those massive blades there are just, those are its hands. The weight of which is clearly displayed during its movements and attacks, where it's kind of lurching around and orientating itself by that weight. Behemoth is super quick though with its dash and combo attacks. It kind of blips out of existence during these because it's just moving that quickly, almost like it's teleporting. I really like it. Honestly, there's just something really satisfying about this Behemoth. It's a simple and honest design that I think really works, and I also think it's really fun to fight. I was actually shocked to find that it was a low-level Behemoth though, for being a totally new one. It's got a really cool design to it. But, I think that's going to be a great enemy to encounter for new players, or if you're just leveling a new weapon up. So I give the Savit a strong stamp of approval. I really like it. Now let's look at the Thunderdeep Drask. It is nice to see Drask come back in force as a bit more of a scary Behemoth. While I wouldn't say its new design is that inspired or exciting, it does take the original Drask and make it a bit more deadly. I was actually down with the group I was fighting with suddenly in one hit from one of its charged explosions. When it's enraged, you'll actually see that familiar laser blast that Drask does, but just unleashing hell with them, just firing them out over and over and over and tracking you like a cannon. Before it fires that out, it'll actually just disappear and then get range to force you to evade and then rush to it while avoiding those cannon blasts as fast as possible, because you do not want to be hit by these. So yeah, slightly enhanced Drask with more danger to the encounter. And while Savit is awesome, the Thunderdeep Drask is just fine. I mean, I'm glad it's there, but it's nothing to lose your mind over. Let's compare that variant to another then, this being the Bloodshot Shroud. This is a much higher level Behemoth by comparison. This is right at the peak of the current set in the highest level areas. And so it's stronger and much smarter than your generic Shroud in theory, and it still corrupts Slayers like before and has that darkness attack which traps you in a dark area where you can barely see. That's still very scary to deal with, while overall its attacks are a little bit more scary and it has a lot more health, like say a heroic behemoth. The worst part for me though is the constant illusions going on. Normally you'd only see those with the shroud when it's charged up, but Bloodshot is just doing it constantly, and they're really overwhelming, especially when you're in that darkness trap at the same time. So it's a cool fight, just made a bit scarier. I would say a much more intense behemoth than most, certainly in a hunting ground. As a behemoth, I'd say it's better than fine, but also not crazy, not a major improvement over the regular shroud. Finally then, the Phalanx. This guy is the new summoned behemoth in the same way that Chronovore was. You need to complete a task to actually summon the big bad, and then you'll have a fight that's going to be very intense. Naturally, you'll find this guy in the new map, the Blazeworks, which has 6 valves hidden around it, and you need to activate all 6 of those to summon the Phalanx, right? Which can be done when you're charged up after killing a behemoth on the island. Design-wise, I think it's really cool, an exciting and scary combination of machine and behemoth, augmented like a cyborg. This is a metal firebird, and you'll see it make use of all of its new enhancements in the fight as it sets everything on fire with, you know, those literal laser eyes, the fire quakes that chase you through the ground, the fire feathers that shoot out and track you, and then of course lighting the area on fire around them. Are you seeing a theme here? As the fight progresses, you'll be pressured by all the fire that's around you that you have to avoid at the same time. It definitely feels like a Scrave though that's been turned into a half machine. We do see many general Scrave attacks, but they're slightly different to normal. And while I quite like the design, I really like how it impacts the combat. Even though it's a bird type, it actually isn't able to fly and do the same attacks anymore because it's way heavier because of the metal, making it go up and down and bounce around and leap and crash really quickly like, you know, a really heavy creature would. Funnily though, and unexpectedly, it's a bit like an armadillo at times. It rolls around in a ball quite quickly. Overall, I think not only is this an awesome behemoth design, but mechanically a really good and challenging fight. Definitely a good addition to the game, and I quite like these summon boss fight concepts in general. To have some awesome fights at the end of Escalations is great, but now we also have these summoned behemoths on certain islands, so I think they're doing a really good job with these concepts. So what about the new hunting ground then, the Blazeworks? This is only unlocked at the end of the Slayer's Path and has some big boy behemoths in it. It's basically your current high level hunting grounds to deal with. The behemoths are extra hard. They're levels 21 to 24, meant to be the highest level behemoths you can find. The design is cool. There's this huge facility spread out over the island. It feels like it was a really nice forest that's now been completely polluted by the machines here, just pumping out steam and gas, and there's these barrels that are spreading waste. There's toxic waste everywhere. Story-wise, apparently the Ostian Imperials have a secret here that they're trying to keep hidden, and I imagine that was tied to the Phalanx. As far as a region goes, it's not too pretty to look at and be in, but I still think it's a cool theme. Certainly makes sense that this is the place that you fight the Phalanx as a machine behemoth style enemy. Let's now go into the weapon reworks, which are a bit different to what I expected. Starting with the repeaters, to give you an idea of what I mean. I thought the repeaters were a bit too repetitive and simple to play, with only the 2 main abilities outside of standard firing. The repeaters largely needed their builds to add unique effects to them. Now they've made that process a lot more functional and easy to get into as a low level or new repeater user. They're no longer modular, which is actually kind of sad because it's the unique part of the weapon. You don't need to craft specific parts anymore like the barrel or grip and so on. It's just one weapon crafted as a whole. So yeah, the unique part of the weapon, the unique crafting system, is gone. The devs explained that there were just too many drawbacks to this system. It was overly complicated and dull to first time playing, as you need to get the better crafting stuff to actually use it. The builds themselves were limited compared to the other weapons, despite that, without say prismatic cell slots. So now you just craft them like any other weapon. They have a much greater variety of cell slots. New repeater players then can get into the weapon faster because of it and hopefully enjoy the unique effects the weapon provides. Quality of life improvements for the gun are nice too. Now you can change the camera FOV for a wider view, but then you can also independently change the aim mode FOV, so you can see a lot more while aiming. Also, the reticle has some nice details. It's much more obvious when you're out of range now because the reticle's tiny, or when you're in close range, it's super obvious that you're in range to do max damage. Overall, it's an important update for the repeaters, making them much better for a new player, and long term lets them add new repeaters with every new behemoth. So it's a good rework in that way, but less expansive than I thought it would be because they still feel feel, you know, very similar. What about the chain blade rework then? This one was more recent and is important to me because my main weapon is indeed chain blades. I love them for their super fast pace and the iframes with the dash and their leap abilities. They felt very versatile and flashy, but there was some clunkiness to it, and even a bug, an important one, where you'd leap up into the air using your resource and then not get a level up. This happened to me while that dev was in my stream, and he saw it and talked about it and said, yeah, that's something they're looking to fix with the rework. So a complete rebalance appears to have taken place. The combos all have different purposes, and in fact some are gone and some are new ones. The light combo is now the best way to generate meter. The blade spin combo is now your main damage combo, and it was a bit clunky this one because it forced you to stand still. Now you can walk and chain spin at the same time. The really useful chain fling combo is gone, which I'm not happy about. It was a good, nice medium range option, but it wasn't used that much because low damage. Now we have lacerating onslaught for our triple heavy combo. These are slow, heavy hitting hits that do wound damage as a new option for chain blades. Finally, chain pull, the dash in, isn't part of our main builder spender attack anymore. It's just a universal attack we can now use to close the gap whenever we want. That's much better for chain blades as a whole. So while, yeah, they've obviously fixed the bugs, they've kind of changed the way the blades work and the meta of them. The fact that your meter isn't generated by damage is a good change as well, because that means shielded enemies will not prevent you from building meter. The new combos give us clearer options for DPS and a bit more freedom of movement. And hey, yeah, we now can do wound damage. Overall, I think this is a really good rework. I wasn't expecting it to be this in-depth. Moving on to Omni Cells then, the new builds you'll find in Dauntless. These are unlocked at the elemental mastery level of the Slayer's Path, and Omni Cells are unique passive and active cells that we can craft and equip to our gear. I think these are interesting though. There's currently 5 in-game. Originally there was just 3, but they've added 2 more in later updates. The Bastion Omni Cells are basically a safe shield builder and spender. You deal damage and get stacks, which builds up a shield. Then you activate this and spend the shield by leaping forward and slamming the ground, dealing more damage based on how much shield you've actually built. Really good for learning a new fight, I imagine. The Iceborne Omnicell is lifesteal based. It wants you to be at full health to use the active ideally, which hurls a ice shard, dealing big frost damage, but it'll deal double damage if you're at full health. So every 60 seconds when you want to throw this next ice shard, you make sure you're full health by healing or lifestealing and send out this big burst. The Discipline Omnicell is crazy. It's crit and damage in exchange for your safety. You take more damage and heal for less generally, but they give you a parry ability. Parrying increases the power of your damage buffs, and when you reach 4 stacks or 4 parries, you get 50% extra crit for 40 seconds, during which you take 100% more damage. So yeah, you're like made of glass, but you're super damagey. A speedrunner Omnicell, I think. The first new Omnicell is Tempest, a super mobile and attack speed based Omnicell, which gives you passive attack speed, but then also gives you extra movement speed every time you dodge an attack. You can then spend these dodge stacks on the active, which is a powerful dash that blasts shock damage on a nearby target and actually specifically targets unbroken parts. That's really cool. But lastly, the newest Omnicell is Revenant. You sacrifice a chunk of your health to summon an orb and also start spawning umbral tendrils, which are going to attack enemies for you. When they attack, they spawn more orbs in, and when you pick up those orbs, you get a stack. Each stack is 4% extra damage. At the end of this mode, when this all runs out, you get your health back depending on how many stacks you built up during, so also kind of glass cannon. So in general, I think the Omnicells are a way more interesting thing than lanterns, and I do think they're coming up with unique and weird things for each element type. So I can see them doing way more with this in the future, a really good system to build on. Finally, the Heroic Escalations then. These are found above your hard escalations on the Slayer's Path and require some higher level escalation levels. Each week there's a different escalation to go out and fight, and in exchange for that you get a lot of currency, merits, as well as the new heroic merits. Apparently, in these new escalations, there's new moves and combos for your familiar Behemoths, slightly modifying them to give you new challenge. Like I said though, you need really high level escalation levels to go do these, so I have a lot of grinding before I can even try these. They do sound cool though, a nice addition to endgame. If you've played these though, what do you think? Could you tell me, like, do the Behemoths feel different now? So, we're to the conclusion then. Have these updates and changes been enough to fulfill on Dauntless's promises and plans from 7 months ago? I think so, yeah. There's been multiple major major updates with actual new content to play, all on a really good release schedule. It feels like you've got something to look forward to as a Dauntless player, kind of always. There's new Omni Cells coming still, there's obviously new Behemoths coming and new variants of Behemoths, they're adding more quality of life stuff, and there's always these new core mechanics that change the way the game works in little ways. The repeater rework was really needed, and now obviously we have the Chainblades one as well, and I was told about that update from 7 months ago by that dev that jumped in my chat. Like, that's how planned out their updates are. Dauntless, in my opinion, had a shaky and shallow start. I thought it had a long way to go, but at that time I was glad to at least see, relevant competition for the Monster Hunter series, of which there really hasn't been in a long time. That's a good thing. We would want more of that if we could get it, because it makes for better games. Dauntless has come a long way since its beginning, and I think, whatever Monster Hunter related, whatever, it's really nice to see games that start with a good foundation and actually build upon it year after year. I think we're lucky to have Dauntless in the Monster Hunter scene because of that. But what do you guys think? Are these good updates? Is this a good timeline to release new content? Hell, could Monster Hunter actually learn from this style of roadmap for its endgame, maybe? For now, that has been my Dauntless update though. Please drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it, so I can actually make more videos like this in the future. Until next time though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.